November 121 Mike, your turn. Taxiing 111.
Hi, I'm Mike Thompson, and welcome to 121 Point Mike Ground School. In the last video, I showed you how to calculate takeoff distance by several methods. Well, once you know that you'll be able to take off at a certain runway, you'd probably want to know how far you can fly, right? Or how long. That's why this video is all about range and endurance. Range is simply how far you can fly. Endurance is for how long. You need to know both. Your plane will have a fuel burn listed in its manual. Small planes might burn between 8 and 11 gallons per hour. 9's a typical figure that I use for the plane that I fly, but make sure you check your manual. So, on your tests, you might be given a problem similar to this. You have 34 gallons of fuel on board, and your speed's 110 knots. How far can you fly with standard reserves? Standard reserves? What's that now? Reserves. You don't want to land on empty tanks, and we want to leave some extra just in case, right? It'd be awful to land exactly when the fuel ran out. Well, here are two numbers that you airplane guys need to know, 30 and 45. 9151 says that you must carry enough fuel to fly to your first point of intended landing and then for another 30 minutes beyond that for daytime VFR, and it's up to 45 minutes at nighttime. 30 minutes for daytime VFR and 45 minutes for night and IFR. 30 and 45. If you're going IFR, then you need to allow enough fuel to fly to your first airport, then to an alternate, then for another 45 minutes. Unless the weather at your primary destination is forecasting an hour before and an hour after your ETA, ceilings of at least 2,000 and 3 miles visibility. This is the 1-2-3 alternate rule. 1 hour before to 1 hour after your ETA, ceilings of at least 2,000 and visibility of at least 3 miles. If that's met, then you don't need to file your alternate, and you can just have 45 minutes worth of fuel beyond your first airport. The 1-2-3 rule. So, back to our example problem. If we have 34 gallons and burn 9 per hour, we could fly for 3 hours and 46 whole minutes, right, before our engine starts to cool off. Now, we need to subtract 30 minutes in the daytime, or 45 for nighttime or IFR. So we'd be able to actually fly for 316 or 301 with standard reserves. And if we're flying at 110 knots, then we could fly for 359 miles in the day or 331 whole miles during the night, right? Or under IFR. And that's the answer to the question. When you fill out your flight plan, one of the boxes asks for fuel on board in time, not gallons. And this is where you'd put that whole amount in your tanks, 34 over 9, or 3 hours and 46 minutes. Now, you could reduce power to increase your time aloft if you had to, but use whatever fuel burn time you calculated for this trip. If you already used the maximum endurance power setting calculated for this trip, then it's unlikely you're going to be able to buy yourself additional time if needed. Anyway, let's do a couple of practice problems to make sure that you're comfortable with range and endurance calculations. So if you have 78 gallons of fuel, 4 of them are unusable, and you burn 12 gallons per hour, how long can you stay up? Pause now to work it out. It's 74 over 12 hours, isn't it? You can't use all 78 gallons, so it's only 74 over 12 gallons per hour. So it's 6.166666, or 6 hours and 10 minutes, without reserves. Subtract 30 or 45 minutes from that, depending on your scenario. Did you get it? What about if you have 300 usable pounds of fuel on board and burn 7.6 gallons per hour? How long could you stay up at night? Long pause. This one has that little trick of mixing units. So we need to convert our fuel quantity into gallons first. 100 low lead has a density of about 6 pounds per gallon. So our 300 pounds of fuel is 50 gallons, isn't it? So 50 gallons at 7.6 per hour is 6.57 hours total, right? If we exhausted our fuel. But we need how many minutes of reserve at night? We need 45, which is 3/4 of an hour. So our total time aloft then, legally, can't exceed 6.57 minus 0.75, or 5.82 hours, or 5 hours 49 minutes. That's why we normally say that, right? Nobody talks in decimal hours, really. I hope this makes sense. It's really not hard to compute endurance. Then once you know your endurance, you just need to know your ground speed to figure out how far you could fly. Maybe you don't need to make that fuel stop after all. But why risk it? Go get that hamburger and some fuel. And go to the bathroom. So that's how you do math on your tests. Your flight manual will actually probably have range tables in it, like here for this 172. The condition for which all this is valid is shown up here. It shows altitude on the left, and then a power setting that you might pick, and then what percentage of the total power you can expect from the engine. What's surprising to me is that at only 2,500 feet, 14% of my engine's horsepower is not available. I know, right? The next column shows you what your true airspeed is you can expect, and you'd put this into your flight computer to then find your ground speed. The next column shows you what your fuel burn will be, and if the mixture is lean properly, of course. Then depending on what you have standard or long range tanks, it shows you what the endurance and range is without reserves. So here you don't have to do any math, but your test is going to make you do the math. Picking a number from a table like this is too easy. And so that's basically it. Multiply, divide, add, subtract. In that order, PEMDAS. But nothing fancy here. Just basic math, and I know you're all capable of it. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. That'll certainly help me out, as will leaving comments down below and engaging in lively discussions. And stay with me on 121 Point Bike.